Good afternoon, Anna. Yeah, I'm coming to you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is the last I Am the Movement event of the semester. Thank you so much for being here, and if you've been coming throughout the series, thank you so much for participating and being the movement that you want to see. So today, we have an awesome guest. Her name is Annie Mabel McDonald Abrams. She's a retired educator and political, social, civic, and community activist in Little Rock. She was instrumental in campaigns to rename various Little Rock streets in honor of Daisy Bates and Mayor Charles Bussey. That's it. Most notably, she was a leader in the campaign resulting in the renaming of High Street in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King and in the institution of Little Rock's first Martin Luther King Jr. Day Parade. Abrams has been involved in many community service organizations. She was a member of the Little Rock Central High Integration 50th Anniversary Commission, Commissioner for the Fair Housing Commission, and Treasurer of the Arkansas Democratic Black Caucus. Abrams serves as an honorary co-chair of the State Martin Luther King Jr. Commission. She is also a recipient of numerous awards and honors and has been recognized throughout the state for her continued community service and activism. She was awarded an honorary doctorate and the Community Service Award from her alma mater, Philander Smith College. She also has received Brooks Hayes Award for Civil Rights Champions and the making of the Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Award for the National Martin Luther King Jr. Commission, given by Coretta Scott King. She was also a 2010 inductee into the Arkansas Black Hall of Fame. Ms. Abrams has continued, or Dr. Abrams actually, continues to reside in a family home in Little Rock. She remains active in her community and through political activism, and her endorsement is highly sought in local politics. So, such an honor to have you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Everybody, Dr. Abrams.
Thank you so very much for asking me to come. I am one of those that they call an icon. But to be called an icon, it means that you had a lot of rich experiences. You met a lot of people that were your mentors. And so for me to come here today to what will be your alma mater, Hendrix College, because of my career in education and my love for that passport called an education, to come here is humbling. I'm very humbled, but I'm very honored that somebody thought that I could bring something to you. Because if you don't know it, I know it. Because I've been to Yale campus, Harvard's campus, and I've met many of their alumnus. And that means when I tell you, you are the Yale and the Harvard of higher education in Arkansas. This is all of the colleges in Arkansas. And to be in Hendrix, you have been given a special opportunity to contribute back much to the society in which you were born. And when you are given that opportunity, I'm humbled that I may be able to give you something that will make you even more productive in making this a better world. One of the things that I know at Hendrix, I know your faculty members, many of them, I've been in different settings with them. But the favorite one that feel like family, his grandmother has the same birthday as mine, so we celebrate September the 25th, which is a real special date in the history because of the political decision to honor the law of the land. Central High was attempted to be desegregated. Desegregated means by our law. It was not integrated. It was not harmonious. it was the thing that made your state, Arkansas, in education, something that we are still trying to overcome when we call ourselves a democracy. So when I was asked to come here, and I know what education is, and I know where I am, and I also know to whom my debt of gratitude is God. I truly understand that on all of our currency that says in God we trust. And so for God to let me be here 83 years later from when I was born in 1931, and who was the president, and what this country was coming out of, and to be knowing what this country is going through now. I have crossed many political bridges. So what I'm going to do with you today is you gave me some guidelines. You said you wanted me to share with you my experiences with the Little Rock Central High School story, which had its origin in 1954, when the Supreme Court issued a confirmation on our Constitution that says that nobody, based on the color of their skin, would be denied an opportunity to get the best education for to have a good life. And that had been reserved for people who were not African Americans. So as a result of that, Central High is in my neighborhood. I've always lived no more than 8 blocks from it. And the students who were the ones that were the explorers of the American experience of equal education, I knew all of them. I knew their moms, I knew their dads, I knew their grandfathers. And I knew that I had come out of, in 1957, I had come out of the best African American school. If you would Google it and look at Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School in 1954, 4 years after I had graduated from it in 1950, you would see the same architectural design as Central High School. There's a reason why it looks like twins, only one is larger than the other. That was because there was a law that had been confirmed by a Supreme Court that said that in America, if you share something equal, that's okay. If it's in different places, and different people, different colors, different nationalities, go there. And that was the, quote, false message that was confirmed. So if you had been somebody from another country coming and you looked at the outside of the building, you would think that they're the same. Because they look alike. Same architect, same school board, same contractor built both of them. But one on the inside, just like your college, has the cream as relates to accreditation. Or what is offered on the inside, the curriculum, the staff, the resources were not equal. And that's why you had the 1954 decision that there had been an examination and said, no, this is not equal. And what we'll have to do now is With all the money that's been invested in both of these schools, we'll just have to open them up and then everybody go for it. And so 9 of my neighbors' children went there instead of going to Harsh Man, which there were some politicians who had tried to do something to get around that schools would be open to everybody regardless of the color of their skin or their nationality or their religion. And that was, they had built 2 schools so that there would be another opportunity to try to prove that equal education was available. And that was Horace Mann High School that was still in the African American community, and there was expectation that was satisfied, so he didn't have to go to Central High. And then there was one called Hall High School. And those 2 schools, like the architectural design of Central and Paul Laurence Dunbar, looked alike. They were made to look like they were equal, but that wasn't equal. The teachers were paid different. And so we had to go back to the courts to have lawsuits about just that part of trying to equalize it. If both teachers had gone to high school that was adjunct of Yale, and one had gone to an adjunct that was Fisk University. Fisk University in Nashville, when we had separate higher education institutions. Fisk, F-I-S-K-E, University in Nashville was the same thing as Yale or Harvard. Only again, it was for blacks. And it was a top-notch institution, but it still was restricted to people of color. And so we had to deal with this now on a national level and an international level. One of the things that I want you to know as I try to talk about what you asked me to talk about, my experiences from the Central High 1957, I can't do that without going, there was something going on before 1954, 57, and there was something going on after then, and it's still going on, that people are trying to get it straight about, is this world open to all people? In my experiences, I've had an opportunity to interact with a lot of people. And so I have some young people, like the one that calls me his global grandmother, his mother's from China. And I have the relationship with them, so we talk on the computer, that he calls me his global grandmother. So that's my Chinese global grandson. And he was able to come to this country and have golden opportunities. His high school that he's presently in, a senior, and he's asking his granny to see if I can use some of my political connections, like Bill Halter, who ran for governor, was a lieutenant governor. Bill Halter calls me his political mama because I campaigned for him. So I have a grandson that's a native of China. His mama had him there, so he's not able to be called an American because of where he hasn't been born. But his brother is. So My grandson, my adopted grandson from China, is over in Hot Springs going to that school. That is an elite school. That's an East End school. And he's just going way up there to the point that with a little help, he's just about accepted to stand in Silicon Valley. Let's go back to this little girl that's now 83 years old. The school that she was going to in Clark County, there's 75 counties in this state. And in Clark County, it was a progressive. It was kind of like Conway. It had colleges when other folks didn't have. Henderson and Washington. This little girl that was born in 1931, when the law said that blacks and whites could go together at Henderson, Washington, but they couldn't go to Arkadelphia High School, and my school was Peak High School. Well, in my den, I have more books than they had in the library at Peak. And so, in order to go to the Ivy League of high school, my mom, who had gone to Peak when the highest secondary grade that you could go to was the 10th grade. And she was such a scholarly person that her class, her graduating class, was 5 people. And they were able to have on the sidewalk, which was just like being in malls, to think that. So her great grandchildren have been able to get pride when we go to Arkadelphia and look on that sidewalk where the highest education a black person could get was the 10th grade. My granny, my great granny, got the best that they had to offer. But the best was not good enough for me, my mother said, who's on that sidewalk. She sent me to Little Rock when I was in the 8th grade so I could get a premium education under the law at that time, which was Paul Lawrence Dunbar. One of the things that when I try to help people to get an appreciation for the heritage of their community, whether I'm talking about church, the house of worship, synagogue, whatever, or whether I'm talking about the college, or whether I'm talking about City Hall, or whether I'm talking about the city auditorium. The history is written in this town by names. There was a terrible political fight when the Little Rock School Board in 1939 wanted to name Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School the color Little Rock High School, because the one for white was called Little Rock High School. And they wanted to have, still trying to say they're gonna be okay. They're gonna look alike. But the black community said, no. We want something in a name to give us while we fight for equality and equity. We want something that will cause our children to be motivated, literally and literarily. And so there was a big political fight as to what shall we name this school that's an improvement over what you had. And it ended up saying that if you want the school to mean something, the name must say something. And so that's how my high school was named, Paul Lawrence Dunbar, because I was a poet a literary giant, and they wanted children to know. So the first thing that we needed to know, but that was the same thing that was why I had come from Peak High School. It was named after the Peak family, P-E-A-K-E, because they were pioneers in education. So there's something in a name. As I was coming up, this building has a name. This college has a name. You need to know what's in that name. Why did they name this institution Hendrix? It has a political connection. How many know why your school is named Hendrix? Your lesson and your assignment is, don't you ever be in a room that you don't know why this college was named Hendrix. Every one of the buildings has a reason, a political. Either they are honored because they gave money, or they had enough money that they had power. Same thing with Harvard, Columbia, Stanford, Biscuit, Tennessee State, Wiley University. There's something in her name. You heard as she was introducing me that I've been a political activist, and one of the ways that I was fighting for dignity was in the naming of streets. In my town of Arkadelphia, as progressive as it has become by law, we have black mayor, black superintendent, black assessors, but the Civil War was nothing compared to what they're doing for the last 5 years. We ain't gonna name no street after Dr. Martin Luther King, and another set saying, yes, we are. The street still has not been named because they can't get together. They've had some reconciliation, tried to work it out. One of the census that they did was to say, well, this was the predominantly white community. The elected officials. We don't want it to be on Pine Street, which is where I grew up. We want it to be on the highway, 67, it goes right down between Henderson on this side and Washington on that side. The African American community said, oh no, we don't want that. We still fighting that they don't be fair over that, neither one of them. That's not symbolic or showing respect to this African American. We want it to be on Pine Street, which will inspire black children to know that we have somebody. Because you got plenty of things named in this city that when they know what's on a name, they see it. But the places that we have named are named after things like Pine Street. It's named after all those pine trees that grow on it. Caddo, Main Street where black folks live, is named after the river. And they said, no, we want something where everybody got to travel on it. From Walmart and every place. And so that Civil War is still going on in your street. We had the same problem when I was an activist trying to get a street in Little Rock names. After Daisy Bates, who was the one who was the surrogate mother, like I told you, I was a surrogate mother to my Chinese child and to my Asian child, because I'm known as a global person. So you see all races and all ethnicities coming to my house. Well, when we got ready, after we finally got it where the children were going to Central High in race, but I happened to have been the first African American PTA president. And that was just like winning the Civil War when Robert E. Lee was a general. But because I had been an activist and an icon, and I had a reputation that I fought for children, and a PTA is the advocate, the lobbyist for children. But the difference between in 1957, when the Little Rock 9 was going down, Annie Green did a block for me. I changed the institution called PTA, parents and teachers working together for the good of the students. But teenage pregnancy had gotten to be so, quote, accepted that they didn't throw you out if they found out you were pregnant. 2 weeks before I graduated in 1950, the public policy of the Little Rock School District was nobody, black or white, could walk across the stage and get their diploma if they knew you were pregnant. That was the moral standard. So 2 weeks before we graduated, the gossip got out. One of my classmates was pregnant. And they had her checked by medical sources, and she was. She could get a diploma, but she couldn't have the dignity of walking across that stage with a cap and gown. Why is Miss Abrams, Mother Abrams, Sister Abrams telling you this? Because public policy changes. So when I became president of the PTA, which I've been a PTA president of about 5 schools where my 4 children had come through. Children born in 56, 57, 59, and 61. Well, I didn't do a lot of planning, did I? But it was, in the long run, it came to the economic rise. The milkman kept coming, the doctor service kept coming as I worked as a teacher and as an administrator. And so they were able to, I could do the same thing. And my son that finished from UCA, he said it's a wonder I didn't put some dresses on him because he was number 4. And the first one, he got everything. The second got a little less, the third got a little less, and the fourth one got less. That's my CPA now. It makes a lot of money. Just got through taking his daughter, who's never been to public school, to DC. He's already taken her, she's in the 9th grade, to Washington, DC. But because I've been a progressive mother, a progressive activist, the reason why he wanted his daughter to have those experiences is because my mama sent me to Paul Dunbar to have more than I could get in Peak High School down in Arkadelphia. Did your parents decide that they wanted you to come to Hendrix? Because you could get more here than at some other colleges. I would almost bet you $2 that you were here because they think you're going to get more and better. When they call you a global mama, it's based on they say you have experienced so much more than most people as a Black African American woman, that's why you can speak. So I worked for the Arkansas Teachers Association when it was all Black teachers. And then I was a part of the organization when the Black Teachers Association and the white one had to merge in 1969. Because some of us said, now wait just a minute. We've been suing for the children to come together. And it's been rough, because sometimes the children were still carrying on the value system of what we had when we fought the Civil War over slavery. And so we said, wait, we can't ask children to integrate under the desegregation laws. And the parents still meeting over here with a Black PTA and a white PTA, with a Black Teachers Association and a white Teachers Association. So there was no 1954 law that made us come together. But intellectually, we knew that that was not the role model. And so we had to go through the fight. I've been through the mergers of teachers, administrators, classroom teachers, and the merger of the non-certified, who was separate, because we were dealing with some elite stuff. Teachers and principals felt superior, just like they had been saying that we had people fighting over superiority based on race. And so as a result of that, I've been through the merger of white, non-certified secretaries, bus drivers, cafeteria workers. They had joined together to protect themselves from the teachers and the principals and the guidance people who were looking out for themselves. And so I've been there with that merger. Then I've been there after I had worked with them and been to so many places where that we had to deal with race, class. And you can put it in a pipe and smoke it now. We are having more trouble now, not by race based on skin, as we are about class. Class, who has money. Even though you have come to this prestigious school, I'm sure you can find examples of where children who come from homes where wealth, and let me tell you something, there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. You can become rich tomorrow if you win the lottery, but you're wealthy if 4 generations have had money, land, jewelry, stocks and bonds. Wealth is when you keep it in the family and keep it growing. Rich is you get it, but you may not know how to manage it, and it can be gone. The research shows that most people who are gambling in the first place, believing that they can get, quote, rich, do not have a real plan for what to do with it. And research shows that those who win the $1 million lotteries, within 10 years, many of them are back poor physically. So you see the difference between wealth and rich. Well, that's what happens in all institutions. When Jimmy Carter was president, so you have a sense of time, I was elected, but first selected to be the representative for the United States YWCAs. But then I was elected to be the UN delegate to Geneva, Switzerland for 3 weeks as the delegate for the world YWCAs. There are 90 countries that have YWCAs at that time. And the name of the conference that I went to as an NGO, you've seen that, that is non-governmental organization. We don't vote like the countries that come into the UN and have membership, but we have voice. And lots of organizations that you can be an associate member, you can speak, but you can't vote, cast a ballot. Well, it has never bothered me if I'm in an organization where I don't have the right to vote, because I can intellectually persuade folks so much that they'll vote for me. That's what happens when you're politically astute. So before I let you know how and why I was asked to come here, is because there are people who know that of the 50 states that we have, and when I was first teaching, coming in, when I was first began to teach in 1952, there were only 48 states. 2 were added later, Hawaii and Alaska. And the same thing I was telling you about how people not want to integrate based on race, it doesn't matter. My secretary, when I was working for the Black Teachers Association, and she remained a secretary, but then I didn't have a personal secretary anymore in the merged organization of 2 state teachers associations. She was as white-skinned with green eyes as people who on their birth certificate had white. She had colored at the time that she was born and on her birth certificate. And she had a lot. I used to say to her, "Come up here, I know you're fighting the Civil War. Which side are you on today? Are you a Yankee or are you a Southerner?" Because she had so much white DNA that it would make her very angry when she was treated like she was a direct descendant of somebody from Africa or somebody from India. And so that's when I would say, which one of your skins are you going to be, the one on the inside or the one on the outside? Well, the reason why I shared with you about when we got those 2 additional states, Alaska and Hawaii, as a political historian, I went back to see who all voted that we not let them get in, what you call a state of the United States. Shut your eyes and remember where Alaska is. Shut your eyes and remember where Hawaii is. Alaska had people of color who were the original people there. They were Native Indians that moved down into mainland America. The people of Hawaii, they couldn't swim nor walk over here, but they were Polynesian races. And so when I looked at the history books of who was in Congress and who was fighting that we not let them be a state of the United States, it were the same people from the same states that had been going on about slavery. Check me out. Go back to the Congress when Hawaii became a state and then Alaska became a state. And of the 35 I've been to, I cherish being able to be in both of those in a position of participatory democracy. That's what everybody knows me about. Here comes Miss Participatory Democracy, because she believes that everybody should participate in this United States. So here in 2015, when I have been a campaigner across this country for those who have been governors, I did 22 states for Bill Clinton. But it was as hard as trying to get votes for him then as it was when I went out and did 12 for Barack Obama. It was skin, but it was something deeper. They didn't think that Bill Clinton was capable of being the president of the United States from that little country state called Arkansas. That from an educational hierarchy, we always were saying when he was coming along, thank God for Mississippi, because they're more behind in education than we are. They're more behind in progress of medicine. All of those things, to the point we are still behind, that we have to pay another state to get somebody to be a dentist, because we don't have a school of dentistry. We still don't have a school of veterinarian. We have to pay another state. So we have lots of those places. And as a result of that, I have been a national in other countries, but I also have been the victim of they forget my color and they see me as an American. When I went to Egypt in 2008, when Barack Obama had moved from being a senator to being a candidate for president, and I had some of the paraphernalia. I have over 200 t-shirts of all the many causes I've been in. The latest t-shirt that I'm going to add is this t-shirt. Sometimes I do a workshop. I'll give out the t-shirts, and I have, like you all, but I'd have somebody stand up at the door. You know, some of y'all dishonest. You'll steal my t-shirt because it's special. And I've done it a couple of times with EEOC people from the federal government. This is my latest shirt that I'm adding to the over 200 shirts. I didn't go because I have gotten too old to fight those crowds. But my congressman for my district, French Hill, made sure that I would have the paraphernalia that everybody had. So he brought me back this, and he brought it in this bag, this backpack, because he knew that I've been out here on this battlefield for justice for a long time. So he told John Lewis, whom I walked with, talked with, worked with Jesse. He said, I got to carry Annie back as if she was there. And so he brought me back the program that they had when they crossed the bridge. He brought me back the book that John Lewis has written. He brought me back another writer that's just as important in the civil rights movement as Thomas Merton. But the thing that he brought me that I have a collection of cups. We have been to the World's Fair when we had World Fairs. He brought me one because he know about that. This cup was placed in this bag, this backpack, by the congressman from that state to represent all the blood that was shed for the movement, for the right to vote. And he knew that would be something special that I could share. And I'm not sharing. You're the first group that I shared this with. But the other thing that he brought, that all of this was in, was everybody who went to Selma got this backpack. The reason why this backpack was given so that you'll never forget was because when John Lewis was your age, 50 years ago, fighting for voter rights, and he knew how far they had to walk that 50 miles and go across that bridge. And he still has his, he doesn't just have that bag that he had with an apple and a little snack. He has that scar where he was beaten with a billy stick of the police. And so that the people would never forget, this is what they voted. That would be the memorabilia for everybody that went to Selma. That everybody who went there would know that this bridge was named. Remember I talked about what's in the name? This bridge is named after the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. At that time that bridge was built. And so that fighting of that right to vote, crossing that bridge was very, very a historical marker. So these are my things that I can teach, that what you are experiencing on this campus can be, is there's always a war going on about justice. And so we now have one that I'm sure you've heard about. I had hoped to bring to each of you a directory of everybody that's in the legislature today. And I didn't get a chance to get it, but if I get some, I've already distributed 50 because I am a participatory democracy person. And everybody needs to know who's making decisions that will be 50 years over your head. But the reason why is because I teach on this. This is my textbook. You need to look and see who is over at the state legislature. Where do they go to school? Are they married? Do they have children? Do they have a business? How old are they? What color are they? All that's written here. Because our basic underlying philosophy is based on family, community, and schools that we go to. So I didn't get to that to have today, but I am an officer. I am a Democrat. Didn't want a yellow dog Democrat. Yellow dog Democrat was old Martin City. If a dog has a Democrat on him, we vote for him. But I have been one of them yellow dog Democrats that I can still think. And I'm not loyal to something that I feel is detrimental for the common good. So the present governor that we have, Asa Hutchinson, I publicly, and I was feeling like I was a lady from the red light district. But the bottom line is, I lobbyists for justice got to know the man. But I know politics because I've been in it. When I talked about these governors here and their defining moments, Baldwin's defining moments, he defied the government of the United States. Each one of them had a defining moment, and we all do in politics, we all do in education. And so I know that you need to know who's making a decision about his, directly or indirectly. And so that's why I wanted you to have this, because this is the same things when you go in the war. I have a shield to protect you. The other thing is, you get afraid you don't have hope, and you can't function to make this a better world if you don't have a frame of reference. So we have only 15 African Americans here. But at the same time, I'm looking at something else because of my political awareness. In that book, mine is marked all up. This is my data reference, my research. I know how many Baptists are in there. It's important because we have some political. The religion, the denomination that you belong to will influence your political ideology. So I need to know who's in here. How many Catholics? How many Buddhists? How many Muslims, if they're in it? How many Hispanic, if they're in there? Because it's going to influence their experiences that they've had. Because right now, this is a book that if you say you're a citizen and you are going to participate in this democracy, you need to know when religion in this country or in this world can be. That's what's happening in the Middle East. I've been to Egypt. I've been to Ghana. And I know what it's like. I've had international students from around the world. And what I'm in the business of is trying to bridge the racial and political divide. Today's paper, is talking about a political divide based on 5 little words: sexual orientation and gender identity. We almost had a civil war about that. Based on some people are upset because of their religious position as it relates to people's sexual orientation. Some is because of whether you're a Democrat or Republican, who's having this war in the legislature. You have to know who's over there so you know who's fighting. And if you have somebody, or you yourself, know that the fight over there will reach down and impact your life. So this is the hottest political. This is hot now about sexual orientation and the word whether they're being treated equal or unequal in a judicial system as evolved when we were talking about in 1957. Based on race. Well, you had asked me to come in the middle of March when we were still having some celebrations, and of course, as Gore tells us, it snowed. I don't know whether there was climate control going on. Something going on. So I didn't get calm. But for this little girl who came from Arkansas, born during the Depression, 1931, I don't care what town you're from, but you to be on the front page of the Arkansas Times, and it says, you want to know Black history? Little Rock's Annie Abrams has lived it. That's what we got here today. I lived history. But at the same time, because education has been my baby, I'm asked to speak so many places now because of the policies of the State Department of Education and Little Rock Public Education. It's the same kind of energy, politically, about the State Department of Education stepping beyond their bounds to take over Little Rock School District. Because the Little Rock School District that I came to, because it was the best in the state and in the South. The only two that was better educationally classified when I was in Paul Laurence Dunbar was Memphis and St. Louis. We were the big three. Big three for athletics, big three for band festivals, track. So I was getting the best that was available that my mama took me from academic. But now I'm dealing with a mixture. What is hot in the Rock, Little Rock? So from February the 25th to April the 1st, the First United Methodist Church, where Hillary, I used to go to her Sunday school class and teach her on special occasions like Black History Month. That church says they are a progressive, open church. And so these are the topics that they've been discussing, because Little Rock is an urban center. The urban centers in Arkansas, Fayetteville, Texarkana, Hot Springs, Pine Bluff. Those are the urban centers. And so they fight the rural. So the Chamber of Commerce, which I'm a part of, they are the ones who are saying we are looking out for the economic development status of our state. But the religious group is looking out now for what's morally right. So I want to share what I've been going to meetings during that snow time and all. Some of them had to be changed. February the 25th, we were discussing crime, downtown versus safety in the neighborhood. And we had as our speaker the Little Rock Police leadership. On March the 4th, never-ending construction. And we were looking at the Robinson Auditorium and other buildings that were built the year I was born, because Roosevelt was trying to rebuild this country after we had the worst recession you'd ever had in the history of this country, called Depression. So that's what we had going on. So they're saying it never ends. That's why when I was coming on this campus, constantly have to be building, expanding, and renovating. And we were dealing with that. I was on the committee when we were having, after Hillary and Bill decided that they would have the presidential library in Arkansas, in Little Rock, which would bring us tourism and a lot of things that would be money makers. That was a fight that was just like the Civil War. Because where it's located is where you had to do some things that folks said was racist motivated. You had to get rid of a lot of houses that were little cheap houses, shotgun houses and all. So you were uprooting a lot of African Americans and poor white folks. But somewhere down the line, some visionary people said, yes, it's going to harm some people now, but it'll be better in the by and by. And so we've had it for 10 years now, and we begin to believe that it was not the worst thing that could happen to Little Rock. The other thing, on March 11th, I was one of the speakers, and one of your professors was a speaker. That was Jay Barth. And we had to talk about, from a visionary standpoint, a historical standpoint, and a reality standpoint, about how you handle revitalization in a city versus gentrification. Gentrification is where there's a perception and sometimes a real reality that white people come back downtown, that left downtown in what we call historically white flight. Little Rock went through that. The house I bought in 1970, there were only 4 of us blacks that we were gentrifying what had been the white neighborhood. Now, it's only 4 blacks, but it's a lot of whites that are coming back down, and that's called gentrification. And so that's the battle that we're fighting now. Then I went to where we had, in the urban area, what we were talking about, industrial parks. An industrial park is an area where a lot of companies came that were industries. They were building clothes, making bicycles, telephones, and those were industrial parks. Well, all the industrial park companies are gone. And they're gone to China and Japan, where you don't have labor unions. And they can get labor cheaper than you can get here. But the unions began to die, and I've been at their part, I've been a union person, that the people at the top of the union were greedy. And they pushed, and they got more money than the folks down at the bottom who was on the assembly lines. Same thing happened in Detroit. And now it's a raggedy, pitiful city, but it's coming back. So what the last subject we had is Little Rock a hot spot? And that is a place where people will come. But as I was telling you about my son, a CPA, teaches business administration, one of the things that he learned from me being a participatory democracy worker, volunteer, most of the things that I have done in those 35 states, I've gone in. I've been in there as a volunteer, either with the Urban League, with the NAACP, with the church, with the PTA, my sorority. But when I went to DC all those years as an educator to the NEA headquarters, I got so that I knew that I was going to be a global citizen. I wasn't going to be satisfied, even though I wasn't going to be able to speak the languages, because I didn't have to, because America being the top of the five at the UN that organized it, everybody has to learn how to speak English, but we don't have to speak their language. Now I'm crippled. You are too. Because now with the travel that you can do and the job opportunities you can have, you need to be not only bilingual, but multilingual. If you can speak 4 languages, man, you can write your own check. Because you can be hired to work anywhere in the world. So I taught my son that it was important to be a global citizen from the time he came to UCA, and I took him with me on some of those trips that I was doing as a volunteer. We stayed in the World Trade Center for his finishing UCA. His graduation gift from his mom was he could go with me to a meeting I had in New York, where I used to go every other month for a board meeting on Wednesday. And we stayed in the World Trade Center. Because of this culturalization I've done with him, he took his daughter back to the new World Trade Center. I went back when it was just a hole. But the one thing I taught him was, just like I fought for us to have a street named after Martin Luther King, we went always from this old to Washington and saw the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Monument, and then the last one that was a part of this journey I've traveled was Martin Luther King's memorial that's there. Should have got to the White House and see it. But I love to go up and down Ambassador Row. That's the home away from home for those people that come to our country, just like we have a home away from ours. Benghazi was our home in another country. As I talked to you about you having 3, 4, and 5 languages, and you really believe in the 21st century and the 22nd that you're going to be a global citizen and a possible citizen on Mars, because people are already, business folks, planning to go there. So your education has to keep up with an evolving world. You may not can go to the countries, but I guarantee you, if you go and when you're in DC, go there to the ambassador's location of the country you're interested in knowing about, you'll become a global citizen. And if you do it before you get there, they'll treat you even better because you know how to get close to folks. If you're going down in the Delta, you don't go down there talking about, I know some oysters and stuff. You talk about the language of the area. That's an educated person. You must know the language, the culture, and the mores of that community. Because you're the outsider trying to get to be a part of the insiders. I thought you may be interested to know, wonder why she's been to 35, what were the others that she hadn't been to? When I say I've been there, I'm not talking about I flew over it. I'm talking about I was in there like I'm doing with you. The organizations and all that I've been a part of is I have been to Idaho, Iowa, Nebraska, Montana. That's an area that there's not a lot of activities of the kinds of organizations I belong to interact with. Because that's still kind of an area that most of us don't know enough about. Still a lot of space there. But I haven't been up there as I'm on the tip of my country. I haven't been to Maine. I haven't been to Rhode Island. I haven't been to New Hampshire. And I haven't been to Vermont. But I'm gonna get there because that section is where we're now concentrating. So those, you're gonna run for president of this United States. You're gonna try to get up there to Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Maine. And when I was talking about it, if you're from the South, we have a lot in common with that area. And you'll do well to know about it. I've been on over 100 boards and commissions. I've been on those that were progressive. I've been on those that were regressive. But I was there to try to help them to see you got your head in the sand and you got your tail up like a peacock. But you're gonna look down at your feet and your tail's gonna come down. If you ever been to the zoo, you know what I'm talking about. I've been to the conventions. I've been to 2 national conventions of the Urban League, which is a leader in helping to determine where we're going. I've been to 5 Democratic conventions. I've been to 10 national YWCAs, ending up, as I told you, in Geneva. I've been to 15 NEA conventions, the National Education Association, around this country. And I've been to 1 National Baptist convention. Because I needed to see, because I'm Baptist born, Baptist bred. Yes, I'll be a Baptist gone. Too old to change. But the thing what I'm saying is, young people, you need to have a diversity of life experiences. You need to have a passion about whatever you think your calling is. I sang in the choir and traveled with the choir when I was in college. But that wasn't my gift, and I didn't have a passion for it. I just enjoyed going to the assembly. But I don't have the discipline, nor the skills. But you ought to identify culturally what is your cultural choice and follow it and support it. The other thing is I've been apart from a spiritual standpoint when we talked about these books, when religion becomes lethal, and the other one about the bridge. I've been able to balance myself by an organization that's no longer by its old name. We had to revise it. We used to be called the National Council of Christians and Jews. We were just trying to get Christians and Jews to learn to work together. But now we know that this world has shrunk. We got people from all of these. So this is, I mean, people who are progressive, who are advocates for inclusiveness. It's called A Company We Keep. And it's an honor roll to be in this book. Yes, at 83 years old, and why I bring stuff so I could do it instead of doing the computer is because I'm not quite tech savvy. I got Facebook, and I'm gonna feed my card. I use my computer for my pulpit to talk about values. I use it for my classroom to teach you about participatory democracy. And I use it for to keep up with what you all are doing. So I'll know that I'm gonna have to learn how to, what do you call it when you, in the alphabets, ABC, can't say something in long sentence like I said. Text. I got 2 grandbabies, they both not present. I make them come over and text something for me. But I know the world is moving in a direction that I'm gonna have to learn how to text. My Facebook is not gonna be just enough. I'm gonna have to have a blog of my own, because I'm an opinionated advocate, lobbyist for justice. So what has Miss Annie Abrams been doing at 83? I've become very interested in the brain and how it can affect the quality of life I have. I'm investigating what makes some people super ages, how they have been able to maintain their cognitive progress or regression. I tried to figure out all of the symptoms that tell you you got Alzheimer's. I get so mad, so oh my God, I can't remember what my keys are. Let's see. Then I found out my 50-year-old, she can't remember what her keys are either. I ain't got no Alzheimer's. I just got information overload. And so I came to tell you that I also, I'm not foolish. I know that this immoral body can break down. And so then I look at, because I got to be a master in it, my husband had an aneurysm in 1970, and there are 30 years. And the doctor told me he'd be a vegetable in 1 month after he had it. I said, oh no, we can't do that. I got these 4 babies. And I taught him, I was his caregiver. And I brought him back because I became a master in understanding how you rebuild that cognitive ability that he had. And I got him to the point where he could talk again, he could think again, and he was at home, and when the phone rang and it was dialing dollars, he got it, answered the phone, told them what was up and how much it was. And that $111 made him be, that was the best therapy that he had ever had. Because he saw, he could retain, and he could articulate. And so I don't give up on myself. I have another piece. That number one, I told you about my grandfather. At the end of 99. My mom was 97. On my paternal, my daddy's side, nobody died before 80. The oldest one was 94. My aunt of a 3-sibling group. So, honey, I'm 83, but I got a possibility that I can be 100 if I follow all of the advices out there. I have followed presidents. I know that each one, I group them, what Herbert Hoover and Franklin Roosevelt meant to my life. I know what John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and James Madison did. I know what the Bushes did. I know what Dwight Eisenhower did when he put fathers in his place. I know what Jimmy Carter, I've met him, talked with him and his wife. I know what Lyndon Johnson was. I got to meet him and hear him. But the most important thing is, I know what Abraham Lincoln meant as it relates that I could be standing here today in one of the most prestigious colleges. You all have come to learn something. And so I humbly hope that I have inspired you, I have stimulated you, And I have motivated you to say, as I did when I ran around this country for Barack Obama. I didn't bring the paper, but there's a newspaper from the Chicago Tribune when I was at the Democratic Convention, and I heard him say something that caught my ear because I'd heard so many speeches that I said, he's going someplace. And I asked for one of his cards as I was sitting in the Arkansas delegation, and the Illinois was in front of us. And they gave me one, and when he made that famous speech in Boston, and here Anna Abrams is holding up the sign. Out of all the signs that the photographers from Chicago had taken of their senator, they took a picture and put it on that Sunday paper. Annie Abrams, a delegate from Arkansas, helping and shouting, yes we can. Thank you so very much. Q&A, is there time for Q&A or you got to go?
Yeah, we can do a short Q&A, and then there's some reception from Ms. Abrams in the Mills Library, so if you guys want to stick around.
Okay. All right. Anybody got a Q&A for me? I just want you to know you can't scare me. At the Clinton Library and at Rotary 99 in Little Rock, I'm called in Arkansas, Helen Thomas. Helen Thomas was a reporter that always asked the president the first question for 50 years. And so in Arkansas, they say, I'm the Helen Thomas. If you want to do the Helen Thomas and ask me a question if you think I don't know the answer, or I'd be afraid to answer, I'm too shy to answer. I'm waiting, I'm ready. Did I cover that much? Oh, I'm getting good. Okay, thank you.